In your experience, sports or positions in sports are the most critical for enhancing vision.
Yeah. I'll say everything.
Yeah, of
'Cause
course you would.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because I really do ascribe to Bill Bowerman, the co-founder of Nike, says if you have a body, you're an athlete. So when I was at the VA, I was doing sports vision, right, during my residency.
You were?
Yeah. I mean, we had veterans who enjoyed whatever sport they did, for example, golf, and they needed cataract surgery. So once they got cataract surgery, now they could see better. They could
Yeah.
read the greens better. I just did sports vision.
Yeah.
Right? And I think I'm going to go on a little side tangent. I think we as a profession sometimes think sports vision equals VT.
Right.
Whereas I think sports vision equals primary care.
Yeah.
No different than contact lenses.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to Chris Wolfe Podcast on iCode Media. Today I'm going to have a conversation with Dr. Fraser Horn. I'm really excited to talk to him about lots of things, probably ASCO, being a dean of a college. He's not that much older than me, although he looks way older. But he's not that much older than me. But it's exciting to see somebody of my generation kind of succeed in so many things. But one of the things that I'm most excited to talk to him about is visual performance, carotenoids, and kind of some of the work you've been doing around that. So,
Absolutely.
Dr. Horn, thanks so much for being on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's an honor. So
Yeah,
thank you.
thanks. So tell me a little bit about your background, specifically in visual performance, sports vision, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, so when I was actually in undergrad, I worked with Dr. Alan Ryko, who is a faculty emeritus at Pacific University, and we did work with vision and performance. So he'd bring me into student thesis projects as the research assistant and just kind of let me know, hey, this is what vision can do within sports and performance. That continued on to optometry school, where we were busy working with different projects for Nike, research studies, looking at tinted contact lenses when the Nike Max Set came out, for example. My study was actually on the Nike Golf Tint, and so we helped develop that.
That was the amber. That was the amber.
That one was actually for sunglasses.
Okay.
I should have said for sunglasses. And
The amber was?
Yeah, no,
the other side?
my tint,
Okay.
yeah. So I had a sunglass tint where it's this almost, he liked to call it Merlot, but it's this light purple that actually highlights the ball as well as the green. So it's easier to see the break of the green.
So I'm interested in this because this was something that we actually had access to when I was still in school. So it must have come out right. So you were a 2004?
2004, yes.
So I was a 2008 grad.
Yeah.
And so we had maybe like right at the end of my optometry school, we started having access to it.
Yeah.
What kind of tints did you guys play around with?
So we actually brought the Nike tint, Oakley tint, and then a few online tints. So actually Bolé, because Rocco Mediate was really popular at that time. So he had an amber Bolé, so we utilized that. And what we did was we took them out of the frames and we cut them and put them in lens flippers. So that way you couldn't identify, because there's some people that go, I love Oakley, I'll only do Oakley.
Right.
And we found out, and we also gave them a clear option. So Nike was the most preferred, followed by the clear option, and then Oakley.
Preferred in the sense of being able to spot the ball, read the greens, those sorts of things. And then was there any like other metrics outside of preference that you guys were measuring that you recall?
Yeah, so we did that in a different study. So two of my classmates, Mike Johnson and Jared Anderson and Jeremy Markson, so three of us, all four of us basically worked together on two projects. One of them was actually on a putting, and we would have it where they would putt, then we'd drop a screen so they couldn't see the end result. And then we'd see where it finished up. And then they also assessed the how much image jump. So we used to do work with what's called the Canadian head form. It's a laser head form. You shine lasers through the sunglass and it tells you how much prism is induced. And we found that those 10 handicaps or lower were really good at estimating the amount of image jump. And it was really consistent with the lasers, which were obviously more accurate.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
And that basically that amount of image jump comes from like the wrap of the
Correct.
sunglasses.
Yeah. And then we found some where one eye may be up, one and the other eye's down, so that's going to throw people off. Or it could be base out in each eye, so now you have a convergence effect, which if you're just putting it on and you're not used to that, can throw off your depth a little bit.
Yeah. So then how did you parlay that experience into, like, when did you start saying, okay, well, visual performance in general, ocular nutrition related to visual performance? Tell that story a little bit.
Yeah. So that came about probably multiple years later. So, I was doing at Pacific teaching, also doing consulting with Nike Vision. And we all knew, and we still know, nutrition has a role in performance. And I think we all thought about it as far as, preparation before your soccer game, before different games. And it was really in discussions with Professor John Nolan, who's at the Nutritional Research Centre of Ireland. And he came out and talked with us at Pacific. So it's really been pretty recent. That was in 2019.
Okay.
And just opened up my eyes to, oh yeah, of course, right? If I can improve contrast sensitivity with carotenoids, if I can improve processing, which then gets to reaction time improvement, yeah, why wouldn't I? Athletes are constantly looking for that 1/10 of a second difference. And so if I can do that with nutrition supplementation as well as vision training, let's do it.
In your experience, what sports or positions in sports are the most critical for enhancing vision?
I'll say everything.
Yeah, of course you would.
Yeah. Well, because I really do ascribe to Bill Bowerman, the co-founder of Nike, says if you have a body, you're an athlete. So when I was at the VA, I was doing sports vision, right, during my residency.
You were?
Yeah. We had veterans who enjoyed whatever sport they did, for example, golf, and they needed cataract surgery. So once they got cataract surgery, now they could see better. They could read the greens better. I just did sports vision.
Yeah.
Right? And I think I'm going to go on a little side tangent. I think we as a profession sometimes think sports vision equals VT.
Right.
Whereas I think sports vision equals primary care.
Yeah.
No different than contact lenses.
Yeah, and so I want to go down that realm because I really believe in like what I call the comprehensive care model or primary care. It's sort of, there's these different terms, right?
Sure.
In eye care, and so I completely agree with the idea of like we should be incorporating what many people think of as specialty services should be part of our comprehensive care continuum. Yes. So explain that a little bit when you're in an ocular disease residency and then you're thinking, okay, because that's what it was, right?
Yes.
VA, ocular disease residency, and then how do you view that then as part of that continuum, and how should I approach that as part of the continuum?
Great. I look at it as, and I talk to our students, because I used to teach the communication course at Pacific, and if I can make recommendations relative to what somebody does for work or for fun, I'm in a much better place to help my patients. So I learn about them. What do you like to do for fun? Those types of things. And then as I'm giving my, hey, Mrs. Jones, I noticed that we found some opportunities, to enhance your vision in the distance with some new glasses or contact lenses. That may help you with your, softball. And then that's what we bring up. That's going to help you while you're driving at nighttime. It's also going to help you with softball, all those things. It's not just, here's your glasses, here are your contact lenses, we'll see you in a year.
Yeah, so then how do you make sports vision not feel like vision therapy?
Yeah. Great question. So this is part of, I have a side business called Sports Vision Pros with Keith Smithson in DC, Amanda Nancy, and Derek Cunningham. And that's one of the things that we discuss all the time is the reality of it is it's just integrating it into our normal care. We don't make it, I don't do vision therapy or I don't see patients every week or anything. There are certain aspects of vision therapy I give them for home therapy, but that's mainly post-concussion.
Right.
But I integrate a lot of that into the work I do with our athletic trainers.
Okay.
So in a primary care setting, it's a lot of, here's what we found, here are your options and opportunities to help you get better at your sport or work. And now let's talk about what we think we can do.
So can you give me like all right, so I want to come back to the other question, but so maybe I'll ask it a little bit differently.
Sure.
If everybody can benefit in terms of sports and then everybody who has a body is an athlete, right? Then let me ask it differently. What do you find the people who are seeking that extra 1/10 of a millisecond? Who are the people that are seeking that extra 1/10 of a millisecond that you find like we can totally help these people?
Great
or
question.
They're really interested in it.
Right. And that's what I find in general, many athletes, I'm not going to say all athletes, because some athletes don't want to change anything because they get superstitious in what they do.
Right.
But you do find a lot of athletes that go, oh, tell me more. Right? If I can, we work with pro athletes that go, if I can get as a soccer player, my foot out a little bit earlier as a defender to stop a ball, okay, talk to me about that. And so there's actually, in a way, almost 3 categories, or maybe 2. One is those that are always looking for that edge. So they're motivated by the what ifs, like, tell me more. And then they'll make their decision. There's the other ones that are close to the end of their retirement, or they're closer to retirement, and they want to stay on the team. So what can you do to keep me? Because I'm taking on guys that are much, 10 years younger than me.
Yeah.
And then there's the other ones that are going, I'm about to get cut.
Yeah.
Right? So give me anything, that can help me. And those are ones that we don't like to make changes in the middle of a season, but that may be one that we're willing to do something with. So I think we have the discussion and go, this is what the evidence shows. Because I don't want to just say, hey, it'll help you. Because often some very smart athletes will go, so why? I mean, how?
How do you know it's going to happen?
Exactly. And then we bring in the studies that are done. If we're looking at carotenoids, it's John Nolan and so many others who are doing those research. If it's others, it's maybe the research done that's sponsored by industry, and or it could be stuff done by like Graham Erickson and others.
Yeah. Okay, and then so you're talking about the soccer player who wants to be able to get their foot out a little bit faster.
Yeah.
And you talk about, okay, so I'm let's say I'm your primary care patient, and you identify that I'm a defender,
Sure.
And I am. Let's just put me in the area of there. I'm going to get cut.
Yeah. Right.
I'm dead if I can't stop that ball faster. Pretend like that's the scenario. What are my options? Talk to me like I'm a patient, and what are my options in terms of like, I can do this, I can do that. Is it nutrition? Is it like a real scenario of what that would look like?
So we've had real scenarios where we'll start with just the comprehensive eye exam, right? I found you have, let's say, low amount of astigmatism, right? Maybe you're plus a half, minus 3/4 against the rule. Sweet. Let's help you with that, because we know that when you're playing under the lights, you're also going to have a little bit of that myopic shift. So let me get you in a plano minus 75 that you're only going to wear probably while you're playing sport.
How much myopic shift do they have under the lights?
So we'll do a 1/4 to a half more minus. Sometimes that's because, and it depends on the individual, it sometimes increases contrast just a little. Right. So
if they're older, if they're young enough. And
I mean, I know at Pacific, when I was a student, you'd say, which is better, 1 or 2, 3 or 4. And then eventually it was it smaller or darker?
Right.
Because we're afraid that we over minus them.
Yeah.
That darker is better contrast.
Yeah.
So I will give them that 1/4 to a half more for certain sports.
Yeah.
Now I do get some doctors that say, no, that's the only one they're going to wear.
Right.
So I educate our student athletes and our athletes saying, are you wearing the shoes that you and I are wearing right now when you're out on the soccer pitch?
Yeah.
No, you have special shoes. You now have these special contact lenses that are designed for performance. If you wear them while you're in school, you're going to think it's great, but eventually it could lead to headaches and a whole bunch of other situations, just like you wouldn't wear your soccer cleats walking around the hallways.
Right. Yeah, I love that. And then let's bring in, because I'm kind of interested, I think that's really helpful. So they're going to be able to react faster because they can see the ball or the spin of the ball faster.
Yes.
And then that foot movement gets in just because of the clarity of their vision, the contrast of their vision.
Yes.
Great. Then when do you think about, because I think the talk that you gave here at Bond was related to visual performance in sports, specifically Division III athletes, right? And their carotenoid levels.
Yes.
So how do carotenoids come into? Is it purely contrast? Is it neurological reaction time? Like, talk about that whole continuum of where you think it makes a difference.
So we look at it, when I think about carotenoids, I'm thinking about contrast sensitivity, which I think is quality of vision, right? We're looking at neural processing, so processing speed. And in sport, we have such a finite time to make decisions. So the faster you can process, hopefully that will guide your movement. And then also things like glare recovery. So, losing the ball in the lights, then getting it really fast right afterwards, any of those types of over illumination of the retina.
Yeah.
So we look at it as nobody's ever failed, but we have opportunities, right? So we want you, when we do the skin carotenoids, at a 400 or above, ideally.
Okay, so that's your metric of saying, like, okay, that's a good carotenoid level.
Yes.
I want to pause there because I want you to dive a little bit into the research, because I know that we have listeners who are going to say, well, why are we measuring carotenoids in the skin? We should be measuring them in the eye. How can you be certain that, first, before we get into the rest of the story, that skin carotenoid levels are going to be correlated with, let's say, serum carotenoid levels, which are then coordinated with retinal carotenoid levels, and then even brain carotenoid levels, right, in terms of reaction time. So how do you go down that path of saying like, okay, I'm confident this is going to give me useful data?
Right. No, great question. I think the way I look at it is people way smarter than me have done all this research, right? They've looked at it and they see the correlation between the higher the skin carotenoids, more than likely the higher it's going to be in the macula.
Yeah.
We could do blood. Yes. We could at our clinic at Pacific, but when I worked in private practice, we weren't going to be
It's
drawing
not
blood.
practical.
Yeah. And then MPOD and other things like that are also wonderful. Again, it's just another tool that you can utilize. And there's some that are subjective versus objective. The nice thing about the skin carotenoid is it's objective measurement.
Yeah.
So we've got that correlation that's in there. So I look at it as it's one of the tools that we have. If you have access to other ones and that's what you utilize, great.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I want to know where are you at and how can we get you better.
Yeah. Okay, so that number 400.
Yep.
What did you find with that number 400 level of skin carotenoids? What was that correlated to in the study that you did from visual performance?
Right. Well, so interestingly, 400 is where we want them to be as like a minimum.
Okay.
At least that's the recommendation. For us, we found an average of 280. So
When you for baseline.
Yes, baseline for all in their first years coming.
And these are athletes. They have a training table. Like they can eat they feed them good food in theory, right? They can have access to good quality food or no?
Yeah. So this is actually freshmen and transfers coming in on day one.
Okay.
So it's whatever they've done in high school all the way up.
Yeah.
And then we've got decent meals at Pacific, but it's a buffet.
Yeah.
So they can choose the salad bar, but they can also choose burgers, pizza, quick carbs if they need anything like that. So it's all open and people are watching, but they're not really.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So we're looking at it as where are they at coming in? Where's the baseline? What can we do? And with the Western diet, we know that average, we don't get enough carotenoids, just like we don't get enough fruits and vegetables. There was a lecture here today that said it's amazing how many kids now report they don't have a vegetable in a day.
Yeah. I mean, I think about this a lot. I don't want to go down that road with our conversation because I could go down a whole other road. But so they come in, average 280 baseline, and I'm presuming that you supplement them.
Yes.
Right? You offer them a supplement.
Recommend it.
Were you again? I wanted to hear your conversation. I was delayed getting in, but
no worries.
So masked. How is the blinding? Tell me about that process.
So this is a check-in that we do that is done for all the students, all the student athletes. Our students are there, and it's just basically it's truly a foundational check of vision. So it is case history, which includes glasses and contact lens wear, concussion history, entrance skills, autorefractor, life meter, and then they're out.
Yeah.
Because I have less than 10 minutes.
Okay.
So that's the key. That's the challenge. I have less than 10 minutes. I have wonderful optometry students, but some of them are actually first years and have no idea because they haven't been trained yet.
Right.
So the efficiency is part of it.
Right.
So we then talk to them about their results, and then we recommend when should they come in for a full eye exam. So that's just our way to identify anybody who needs a full eye exam, and then we can have more discussions in various ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when you're looking at their carotenoid as far as visual performance,
Yes.
what did you find?
So there's a couple things I wish we would do that we haven't done. One is we don't check contrast, even though when I'm in the exam room, I check it on virtually all patients.
Will you? Okay, keep going. I'll put a pin in that. Keep going.
Yeah. And then we also don't do a diet assessment, but we ask those students that were outside of kind of those norms, positive or negative, hey, what's your diet like? And anecdotally, we had students that were 100 on that, which is on the skin carotenoid.
Oh, okay.
Really low.
Yeah.
And when I talked to the athletic trainer, he would go, oh, that's like my worst athlete. Of all athletes, that is my worst athlete. And then there was one who was 780 was his score. We go, what do you do for your diet? He goes, oh, my mom's a dietitian and we own a smoothie shop and he lives in Hawaii. So he's getting really good fresh fruits and vegetables. I talked to my head athletic trainer. He goes, oh, he's solid. Like he's just a solid athlete. So I know it's very anecdotal,
Sure.
one-off here and there, but when we were going through the numbers with the athletic trainer, he goes, oh yeah, this makes sense, right? So we have to actually now put the science into it versus the anecdotes,
Right.
but there's definitely some potential correlations to performance.
Yeah. And so then I wanted to go back to ask you about your contrast sensitivity testing.
Yes.
So you test everybody during a comprehensive exam.
Yes.
Were you doing that during the screening?
No.
You weren't.
Yeah,
So
unfortunately.
tell me about so from a practical standpoint, how do you test contrast sensitivity?
Yeah. So we have an M&S system,
Yep.
and so I'll go to whatever their threshold visual acuity is.
Okay.
So I don't stop at 20/20. I'm pushing them to 2015, 2012.5, 2010,
Yeah.
depending on the individual. Because, for example, we know the average athlete's 20/15. So if I do 20/20, I'm just, it's too basic. So I've got to push them.
Yeah.
From there, let's say they're 2015. I go up one line, put the contrast down to, I think it's a 0.8%,
Okay.
and then I slowly increase it till they can see the first letter.
Okay.
And so that should be a percentage, and I want it around 20% or better.
Okay.
And then I do first line, which is often 1% higher there. So I'm also looking at that difference.
Hold on. Okay.
Yeah.
So you, say that 2015.
Yep.
You put up the 2020
2020.
line at 0.8%.
Yep.
And then you increase until they can finally resolve that.
Yes.
And that's your recording?
Yep.
The full line.
Yes. So I actually do both.
Okay.
In our EHR, I'll write first letter. So I'll put 2015 first letter equal to 15%.
Right.
First line, 20%.
Okay. And then when you, have you done studies that looking at those carotenoid levels, or have you seen any studies related to the carotenoid levels or changing carotenoid levels and increasing contrast sensitivity by being that specific?
Yeah. No.
You haven't.
No. That's probably the next phase.
Interesting.
I'm about to embark on a fun adventure by moving to Ireland.
I know. That's
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll probably do some of that while we're over there.
Okay.
Because part of the challenge has been my role as dean. I don't get in the clinic as often as what I would like to, and so the follow-ups are not quite as good as what we'd like.
Right.
And so that's one of the biggest challenges. Now, luckily, we have Dr. Graham Erickson, and then a couple of junior faculty members, Dr. Aaron Salzano, Matthew Trong, and then also Victoria Spence, who's coming in, who I think are actually going to take it to that level next, which will be great.
Yeah. Well, and so then if I can get back to, back to sort of making the whole loop around, when you, so let's go back to practice and visual performance in a comprehensive practice.
Yes.
Because if you say I'm not doing vision therapy, it's correction, carotenoid supplementation.
Yes.
And talk a little bit about, like, if I'm the patient, how you utilize carotenoid supplementation as when you say, I'm going to start with the evidence.
Right.
Okay, you're correcting my vision, maybe over minusing me half diopter, quarter diopter, so I can play better at nighttime, better contrast at nighttime. What's the carotenoids discussion sound like?
Yeah. Carotenoids, so it depends. There's multiple ways I've done it. Some of it is we look at their score. That's why that life meter is so critical, because everybody loves a score. Like when I assess my patients for anxiety or depression, I do basic screenings that give a score that correlate to a moderate, correlate to the severity.
Yeah.
No difference than us doing glucometry.
Right.
I'm not diagnosing diabetes, but I'm saying I'm really concerned. We need you to get seen.
Yeah.
And same thing when it comes to mental health. It's much easier to go, look, your score is a 20 versus it seems like you're depressed.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So just easier on the patient.
Do you do that? Do you do a depression assessment at all
Depression?
comprehensive exams?
Not so much in comprehensive, almost all of my post-concussion though. Because there's a correlation between anxiety and depression for more symptoms and longer recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting.
And it's something they can fill out, the tech can give them beforehand on a laminate where they, use the grease pencil.
Yeah.
And then
Well, it's not dissimilar to like a OSDI or a speed
100%,
score. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, so how do you then in the, all right, so we were talking about traumatic brain injury, but just general comprehensive. So you said a couple different things.
So I'll talk about score. Let's improve your score.
Yeah.
We know we want you at a 400. You're at a 250.
Yeah.
All right. Now you can eat 40 bowls of spinach every day and that's going to help you, but that's unrealistic. So let's go ahead and look at, we know with studies that supplementation, now it takes a while, you have to be consistent with it, but when you take your multivitamins each morning, you're also just going to add this to that multivitamin regimen. So let's make it what you already do and add it to it and easy.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Otherwise, what I'll look at is then I'll talk about contrast sensitivity. Let's say they're a baseball player picking up the ball compared to the clouds. In Oregon, it gets cloudy. So being able to see that ball, at the clouds, looking at rotation, looking at processing and reaction time. So whichever one may work, and they both could work, we'll kind of go down that road.
Yeah. The most common questions I get include, what ophthalmological codes or evaluation and management codes should I use? What ICD-10 codes do I need to bill with this CPT code? What CPT codes can be billed together and what can't? And my favorite, how do I manage a patient who has diabetes who comes in for a quote-unquote routine eye exam? These questions really highlight the confusion and uncertainty that serves as a daunting hurdle for providers, makes it more challenging for them to care for their patients and provide those patients with the best opportunity for a lifetime of ocular health and clear vision. That's why we built iCode Education, for this specific purpose. Our mission is to provide optometrists with resources to help you understand disease states, revenue cycles, and billing and coding so that you can put that on autopilot and truly care for your patients. Check out iCodeEducation.com, that's EYECODE education.com. We've developed a premier billing and coding bundle that includes all of our billing and coding resources in one place. We also have a 10% discount code just for listeners of this podcast. Enter the coupon code EYECODEMEDIA22 at checkout. We'd love to work with you. Check out iCodeEducation.com. Hello, dedicated optometrists. Are you looking for a way to support your patient's vision and overall eye health? Let me introduce you to Vision Edge Pro, a visual performance supplement that stands out in our profession. Vision Edge Pro contains a balanced blend of mesozeaxanthine, lutein, and zeaxanthine in a 10-10-2 ratio. This combination has been scientifically shown to increase macular pigment density, which enhances visual performance, including contrast sensitivity and vision in glare situations. Additionally, Vision Edge Pro provides 300 milligrams of DHA and EPA, fulfilling the daily requirements for omega-3s as recognized by the leading health organizations. This ensures your patients receive the essential nutrients their eyes need for optimal health. Whether it's for everyday screen use, night driving, or enjoying the outdoors, Vision Edge Pro supports your patients in seeing their best. Recommend Vision Edge Pro for your patients today and help them achieve clearer, healthier vision. Contact your local MacuHealth representative for more details. Vision Edge Pro, because your patients deserve the best in eye health. Go to MacuHealth.com and use the coupon code PODCAST2024 at checkout for special discounts. And then how quickly do you follow up to see the results of what you're doing?
Yeah. So the minimum or the little bit that I've done, we want to I can check in at 3 months, but 6 months is where we start really seeing a change.
Do you think there's a benefit to adherence by checking in early? Have you found that?
Yes. No different than you think about IOP, right? Totally. When we're doing pressure checks, there's part of it is to remind them and answer those questions. So, and our colleagues that work with like Inter Miami, Amanda, when she checks in with them, or Keith in DC, I mean, they're down in the training room regularly and they're double checking with a lot of those players.
Yeah. I think the other part of it in terms of building out a comprehensive care model, one of the things that's one of the biggest challenges, and people who listen to the podcast have heard me talk about this a ton, but when we think about a comprehensive exam, and this is not the school's fault,
right,
but it is the reason that optometrists do what we do is because of the way we're trained.
Yes.
And so one of the challenges with the comprehensive exam is that it's so broad.
Yep.
And yet, and when we're trained, we're always trained to think, well, like if I bring you Dr. Horn here, I think I've got a glaucoma patient. Yeah. And if you're the kind of doc that likes glaucoma in primary care clinic,
right,
you're going to say, well, Chris, what do you want to do?
Right.
And then I'm going to say, I'm going to do an OCT.
Yeah.
You say, okay, go do an OCT. And then I'll come back like, still think they got glaucoma. Yeah. Okay, what do you want to do? I'll do a visual field. Right. And so I talk about this a lot, but But what we've just done, what we've built into the system is like comprehensive care means we answer every single question for every single patient, for every single problem in one visit.
Right.
And that builds in this really challenging thing for us to know, like, when do I need to separate this?
Yes.
So that's kind of what I want to dive into a little bit is that, so we've done a comprehensive exam. We've figured out that this patient has some other things we can help with, contrast sensitivity, processing, and we've prescribed this one thing.
Yeah.
Is it too much, in your opinion, to go down the next path of discussing nutrition? And, oh, by the way, I might need to discuss my Bowman gland dysfunction. Right. When do you make the line in the sand by saying, like, this is where we start?
Yes.
We start everybody here, and then we do another follow-up here to dive deeper into it.
Right. Oh, great
that
point.
is such a challenge for most ODs to actually make that line in the sand.
Yes.
And also say, I care enough about this to be able to identify the problem and give a very efficient solution that's going to be very useful for most patients, and then follow up at some other point. That is exceedingly difficult.
Oh, yes.
I blame our education.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you.
And I'm not saying, and I don't blame it in like a bad way.
Right.
It's just the reality.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and also educational institutions are often helping patients with Medicaid and low income.
Correct.
And there's a view of, I have an educational opportunity. I also don't know if the patient's coming back. So I remember there was times when I go, I would not do this in private practice.
Yeah.
But today we're going to go ahead and run that OCT, right? Because they're here and I don't know when they're going to be back.
Yep.
So let's make sure. But you have to be very clear in that. And I don't think everybody, and I'm not saying I did it all the time.
Yeah, and it's not blaming. I'm not blaming. I think it's just the reality of like, you can say it all we want. We can say it all we want to, right? I wouldn't normally do this in primary practice or private practice or independent practice or in the real world, right? But I'm going to do it now because X, Y, and Z. And then, but these behaviors get ingrained, right?
Oh, 100%. Yes. I mean, we have this discussion in academia regularly.
Oh, it's good.
Like
Pacific, it's great.
Yeah, Pacific at one point in time used to do a 21-point exam. And our checkouts,
I learned.
Our checkouts were on the 21 point.
A B2 case? Was it a B2 case? What's the? I can't remember.
It's like anyway. Number 19, 14B, 14B, things like that. Yeah. So we would check them out before they would go into clinic. And what did we do when somebody came in for an RX exam or RX check?
Yeah.
Did the whole thing. Come in for a red eye. Yeah. Do the whole thing because that's all. That's what you were trained. So your point is perfect.
Yeah, and when we audit, when I audit charts, I'll see the same thing. It's like I do the same exam every single time. Patient comes in, flashes and floaters. I do convertation fields and pupils and EOMs and cover tests. Like, why do you do that?
Right.
And then they build a comprehensive exam. It's like, well, that wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessary for your time, and it wasn't necessary. And I think the other thing it does, what's interesting to me is, I think the other thing it does is it means that ODs are less likely to want to have added on to their schedule, because they think, I have to do all the things, because gosh forbid I miss something.
Yes.
And I've actually had people talk to me, like get mad at me for saying, for like being like, you don't have to do all these things. Right. And they'll be like, I'm a good person. I want to be a good person. And they'll say, and I'm like, whoa, like that's such an interesting, like, what that means is I'm a bad person for not doing it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't care.
And there should be a value judgment.
No.
Yeah.
And so that's, but I think the interesting part is, okay, getting back to that, and again, not to blame academia, because I think all those points are really important, that we have an educational opportunity. We can dive deeper. We have plenty of time. We want to be cost effective for these people who don't have a lot of resources. So, but in real practice, right? In the real world, maybe not real practice, but in the real world, how do you draw that line in the sand to say, okay, this is what's going to work for most people? Like for me, with ocular surface disease, I can say, I've got these key indicators that whether there's some symptoms and there's some signs that I will never turn away from. And that means I'm always going to have a conversation. And I also know that I have two things in my armamentarium that I can do that they're very easy to explain. And they're going to hit the vast majority of patients who have ocular surface disease. So if I do that, it takes me about a minute of time to explain. And most patients are going to at least have some benefit. And then I get to separate a deeper evaluation to know who needs, Restasis or Xiidra or Sequel or Vive or Lipoflow or IPL, whatever, right? Like I know that. But I have the time and the resources here because it's separate. How do you do that in sports vision?
Ooh, great question. So I think it gets to the point of when we're talking about nutritional supplementation, all that, I can do that right then and there. Let's talk to them. Let's get it going.
Okay.
When it starts to get past your primary care of prescribing glasses or contact lenses or the quick nutritional supplementation, and we're going to dive a little deeper and do some extra tests, that's when you go, good news. We're finding some opportunities. And I need to make sure I give you the right enough time.
Yeah.
So that way we can evaluate, and I also have time to talk about what this means for you and your sport.
Yeah.
So let's bring you back next week where we're going to do X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
Similar to, I kind of compare it to sometimes what we do with glaucoma.
No, I think it's great.
Because it's a chronic condition. That's glaucoma, right? That we're checking regularly. Sports is a chronic condition that that a lot of us do. Well, everybody does in some way. So it's a discussion of, I want to bring you back next week. We're going to run these tests on you, and then we're going to talk through what we can do to help you.
Yeah.
Right. And so Keith Smithson does a great job with this, and his team as well. I'm different. I know academia can sometimes be this utopia, this wonderful place, because I can walk down the hall and talk to leaders.
Yeah.
But I think that's the way I've done it when I worked at private practice, is let's bring you back for this. Let's bring you back for that, because I want to give you the time. Yeah. I can try to do it quickly today. Yeah. You're not going to be happy with it.
That's right.
I'm not going to be happy with it. And now it's garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah. So I talk about this a ton because I find that people who are really successful in their area, in their niche, most of them, actually, I think there's a misnomer in our profession and almost this seductive nature to specialization. And most people who have specialties, that specialty, when you actually dive into the revenue that it's generating, most of them, it's just a piece of their comprehensive care. But that's not how it's marketed to people. Right. It's not how it's branded in our literature, in our throwaways, or any of that kind of stuff. It's basically like specialized in dry eye. Right. And you can have this, you're going to be $1 million. It's going to be 80% profit. Right. That almost does not exist. No. And there's a whole bunch of reasons to it. I mean, one of my colleagues and great friends, Kyle Clutie, has done a lot of writing about that. Right. But everybody that does things like you're talking about do it almost exactly the same, right? They do exactly what you're describing. Yeah. I'm going to figure out that point, and then I'm going to separate the time to dive deeper. And then I'm going to do it similarly to glaucoma, similarly to my dry eye, similarly to my macular disease care. So then what are those triggers for you? I call them a trigger. Comprehensive exam to let you know, okay, the contrast in the contact lenses or glasses and the carotenoids is enough. Right. What are the things that you're doing in terms of testing, or maybe it's conversation, that say, I got to separate this? Yeah.
So some of it is just the discussion of, here's an opportunity we have to run you through, for example, use Synaptic Sensory Station, right? So we want to run you through that. I want to talk through that. I can't do it right now, but let's figure out a time. Yeah. And here's why we're going to use the sensory station. So the challenge is time. Yeah. Right?
No, it's totally right.
Having that time, but also being able to say concise enough to go, the nice thing about this for Synaptic is they have a database that we can do it based off your skill level, so high school, collegiate, professional, and even a position, and compare you to others around all these, I think it's like 8 or 9 different visual skills.
What's that called?
The Synaptic Sensory Station. It was actually started with Nike Vision, and then Nike Vision cut their vision department, and now Synaptic licenses it. Graham Erickson does a ton of work with them. It's a wonderful tool.
Yeah. Okay, so I think what I'm hearing you say is, you're going to say, great news. Yes. Fraser, I've got a new prescription for you, and that's going to increase your contrast. One of the other things that data shows us is that if we can increase your macular pigment optical density, we can improve contrast, we can improve some of the other neuroprocessing. And I know yours is low because of this number. Right. So we're going to start both of those things now. Yep. But I also think we can help by assessing yours. Yeah. X, Y, and Z, right? You said synaptic
sensory
station, your sensory processing, and there's probably a whole slew of other things that you'll do there.
Yeah. Right eye is another one that we've used.
Yeah, so I want to get into that in a second. Yeah. I'm just trying to, for my purposes, kind of work through this. Totally. So then I would say, but I also think we can help in other things. So we're going to start here, and then I'm going to see, and we'll get you your new glasses, all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to see you back in a week to dive deeper into these things that I think we can help from a visual performance standpoint. Yep. How many patients? A lot of doctors right now are thinking, "Oh man, I've just uncovered a whole can of worms, right?
Oh, yeah.
So the next step is, how do you not allow that to lead to 30 different questions? This is a huge concern. Well, again, I have never done sports vision in my practice, although I'm really excited to
I'm going to say you
it.
have. You just don't know you've done it.
I have not done it as well as I could. Okay. And I'll tell you, I have not been as attentive, honestly, as I could be, even just to the things that you've mentioned today in terms of like, it's a fantastic idea, right? Like, why am I not talking to my baseball players who are, exactly what you're talking
They
about?
have ocular surface disease.
Totally.
When you help anybody with that,
Okay,
you're
fair.
helping them. If they drive a car, you're doing sports vision.
Fair.
Right?
Fair.
I mean,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. But then when I talk about all these other things, especially with dry eye, everybody's worried about losing like time. So that talk track has to be, to your point about communication, it has to be super efficient.
Right.
What's your talk track at the comprehensive exam to drive them back into the practice?
Yeah.
We call it capturing them, right?
Yes.
And when I say capturing them, I mean I am removing myself as a barrier, because ODs want to talk about, well, that next visit's going to cost $1,000 and this treatment's going to, it's like, how do you remove yourself as the barrier so that the patient gets what they need, as opposed to you being the reason they don't get it?
Yeah, so we'll come back to just like how you're doing different data when it comes to your strength and conditioning, all those pieces. Let's run you through this training or this battery of assessments through the sensory station, right eye. Other people do other things, fantastic, whatever they want.
No, I want to talk about what you do.
What I do?
So you mentioned right eye. Yeah. So first, talk track to the patient.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it will be literally, the great thing here is that we have opportunities that we run assessments on athletes from the elite to the amateur. So I have an opportunity to help you with assessing where your visual skills are. What we're going to do is we'll bring you back next week, so that way we can run you through something called the Synaptic Sensory Station, which assesses not just how well you see, but how well your vision leads your movements. So we're going to look at eye-hand reaction time. You may have seen people with light boards and doing that. We're going to do that. And it's going to be challenging. It's not easy. It's going to be challenging. We'll also do a right eye test, which is what they do is that follows your eye movements to see, how accurate are they and can we get them even better. This then leads us to potential training outcomes. Now, when you come in next week, we're going to have our assistant, so-and-so, run you through those, and I'm going to meet with you afterwards. We'll talk through what we can do.
Cool. I'm in.
Yeah.
Okay, so can I keep fast forwarding? Can I go to the next step? This is not exactly where I thought our conversation would go, but that's usually how these work out.
It's great.
So, okay, now the patient comes back, right? So I am captured, but that would compel me if I had any sense of wanting to be a better athlete, which I do, by the way. And I want to run through some of these things actually. I'm back. I have your tech goes through all of those things. How do you get paid for that? Private practice.
So they pay because it's all cash.
Yep.
So they pay based off of running through those tests. They pay their cash. They then are able to run it. I come in for a few minutes. The beauty of both right eye and Synaptic is it does all the analysis and output for you. So now you can look at it. It's already identified those low areas. Think about the OCT, right? When we look at the T-SNET curve and we're like, oh, look, it's in the red. It at least gives you, okay, now I need to look here. Same thing, we can do it. All these different, that's what a lot of our equipment does. These do the same thing. It gives you recommendations on here are the training regimens that you want to do. So I come in, I can talk as little as 5 minutes and just say, here's what we're doing. Done. And then it's whether, depending on the office, I often have the conversation with them. So especially my elite athletes, I'm talking a bit with them about how we're going to incorporate it. But even my collegiate, I'm talking through it. And then we start doing a journal of the different training that they're doing.
So the training they're already doing, you're not going to have them do extra office-based training. Correct. You're saying, like, let me see what you're doing.
So what I've done is I normally have worked with our athletic trainer, like at Pacific with Eric Pitcanon. We actually have a light board up on the wall in the weight room. And so I talked to him about after you do a rep, you're going to go over there, set it up for, it will say FF30, which is full field 30 seconds, and you're going to run through one of those. Write it down. Right? Then go do another rep. Come back, do another one, because you're doing active cool down. And they go, that's it? That's it. And then I work with Eric, and we do something.
What's this light board? Is it just a different tool? Yeah,
it's just another tool. It's one that's actually not in production anymore, called the AccuVision.
Okay.
But there are other ones. D2, the Dynavision, it's another one that's used a lot. It's a great one. So you'd have to put it in a little bit differently.
Yeah.
There's a couple others as well.
So then, if I can translate that into, so you're at a big university that has access to people that are kind of working with you. I'll get to that in a second. So they pay for each one of these tests that they have to do.
Right.
And then they pay you some amount of time, and that total amount could come out to some revenue that you are taking for the amount of time that you're spending, right? That's calculable, right? I can know how much revenue I'm generating for refractions and selling glasses. I can say I need to make at least that much to do this same thing, or more. And so they pay for each one of those things. You're making a recommendation. And then you're going to say, I want you to write out. Sorry, I take you in different places, but you're going to have them write out their training regimen. Yeah. They go to the light board, and if I'm in Omaha, Nebraska, and I'm not affiliated with the university, how am I making sure they're going to do some stuff like that?
Right. And so I'm going to, Chris, this will be great to add more fodder to your academia ruins things, because we're very privileged in the fact of I don't have to.
I didn't say they ruin things.
Yeah, no, okay, but they challenge that. They challenge. So like for me, I work with Eric, and we do this all for free for the athletes, right? Because that is development for both of us.
Correct.
Now, in the real world, right, or in private practice or group practice, you're probably going to have them either come into where you're at, or what you're going to do is talk to them about, well, let's get you in some strobe glasses. So the strobe, have you seen those before?
They kind of flicker so that you can detect motion stops, right? Or detect changes in between those motion stops.
Yes.
So you can recognize things more
So we're
quickly.
just tossing a baseball back and forth. You see it the whole time. I put Synaptech strobes on, they flash, you get 3 views, and you have to react based off of the less visual information.
So you ever throw it really hard at somebody?
No. But I once trained somebody that did, and it was not a good thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think, that's where I go to, well, because you can sell those from your own practice. But then the thing is, that's why you do a diary of write down what level did you put it at, what were you doing, how many minutes, how did it feel afterwards, and then I want you to come back in a month, or depending on your situation and your EHR, maybe they can email you or message you that stuff. We do some stuff within Sports Vision Pros where we have videos that show how to do the different synaptic strobes, so you can just reference those too and go to this website, it'll show you how to do different things.
Yeah. Cool. And then, so we talked about first of all, carotenoids, we probably want 6 months to see how those are working.
Yes.
But I'm hearing, I'm just trying to build out this protocol. So I'm hearing, I see the patient comprehensive exam, I'm seeing them back in 1 week.
Yep.
I start them on some sort of, I do my evaluation, I start them on some sort of therapy program that's going to be coupled with their existing training.
Yep.
Then they do that. They've got their logs. You've got some access to how they're performing.
Right.
When do you follow up? You said we don't do a lot of stuff during their actual seasons. But when's the next logical step before that 6 months?
I'll bring them in a month. Think about IOP checks, right? It's about 4 weeks in.
Yep.
So I'll bring them in just to double check how are you doing. That way, if they're struggling with any of the strobes or at-home activities that I've given them, I can just check it, right?
Yep.
Now, this is where it starts to sound like VT, because you could charge them for a series of, or you can just charge them as you will.
Yeah.
And what you're really selling is your knowledge, right? Because ultimately, anybody could buy these strobe glasses and do this themselves. Yeah. But if you've done the pre-work, the assessment pieces, then you can talk about, I'm customizing it to you.
Yeah.
You can go out and buy it yourself, but there are a ton of athletes who go, oh yeah, I had that. I didn't know how to work it. So you're selling your expertise. No different than people will say, I just buy artificial tears. Right? Do they help? No. Right? I need to do something else.
Right.
So, and that's your expertise.
Yeah.
So it's why don't you come back? Let's bring you in. Let's do this X, Y, or Z on a regular basis.
Yeah.
CooperVision and the AOA have joined forces in a groundbreaking initiative to transform how optometrists treat children with myopia. The Myopia Collective aims to unite our profession and its allies to challenge the status quo and elevate the standard of care for children with myopia. Everyone is invited to become a member of the collective. By joining, you pledge to act in slowing childhood myopia progression. Membership includes regular updates and information about the collective's efforts, access to educational opportunities and resources, and insights from the ambassador optometrists who advocate for community policy and changes supporting the collective's mission. Click the link in the show notes to join the collective today.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. So now we've assessed them a month. Is it a couple months after, or you go monthly outside of the season? Yeah. What sort of things are you, and then when to upload something or download something? And
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll upregulate depending on what they need. Certain athletes may need more they may need more support, especially if it's off season and they're really doing a fast regimen. So we've done that for some that are collegiate and it's summertime and they just want a little more help, and so it'll be more intensive. The key is also to get to work with athletic trainers. Right? So if you can figure out, even if it's high school, who's your athletic trainer, can I talk with them? And if they're interested, then they're another piece of your team to help you reinforce. And coaches are another one, but coaches sometimes don't care. There's like, I just want to worry about, are they in shape? Can they run the routes? Things like that. Whereas the athletic trainers are going, oh, you mean I can maybe be able to reduce injury risk? I may be able to help them be a better performer on the field. I'm in. Okay,
I'm gonna be selfish for a minute if I haven't already been selfish.
You're great.
Do you ever work with runners?
Not much. So we have, but Graham has more than I have.
What? So my son is going to be a senior this year, and he's a really good cross country runner. He's become better, but he's probably right on that cusp of like D2, D1. If he has a really good season in cross country and track, he's probably going to get a D1 scholarship.
That's awesome. Congrats.
But thanks. But that delta. He's got to bridge that gap, right? So, in your experience, so I know that you said you're not the expert, right? Graham was, but what can we do for long distance runners, just in general, that I can have him start geeking out about? Because he's all about his, like clean. I mean, he's like. He's that generation. They're just like, don't put anything, like he won't even eat out of plastic bowls. Like we have to buy him glass Tupperware that he can take to school, which is like, it's good, but like a little excessive, Lincoln.
No, that's all right.
I know, it's okay.
That's a better excessive than other things.
Totally right. Totally right.
I mean, I think obviously there's a carotenoids piece. There was a presentation this week at Bond conference where it was for shooters, and they were taking carotenoid supplements. And normally performance starts to go down at the end. The last 10 shots, they were just as accurate as the first 10 shots, whereas the controls went down, which is like that stress of the end of the game. So now that's what John Nolan and I were talking about is, okay, so where can we take this next? Let's look at other sports. So if it's happening in that sport where there's a lot of, I know there's not a lot of physical activity, but there is a lot of mental, which is like running.
It's like my body is hurting. I need to maintain just a little bit more focus for this last 5 seconds. And that's all the difference, right?
100%. So I think there's that. It's not going to hurt, right? I mean, it's all natural, from marigolds. It's wonderful. So I think there's that piece. And then what we like to do is stress the system. So while it may not be ideal, you could do stuff like running with strobes. You could actually have him run. Does he wear contacts?
He's okay.
He
doesn't.
Okay, and that's great.
But he could. I mean, if there's something like you want me to overplus him?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Really?
Yeah, overplus just because it's less visual information. We've done stuff looking at also if he's wearing sunglasses, make sure that it has a reflective coating or a mirror coating because it decreases heat buildup underneath, and just less things. These are things that like U.S. Olympic athletes are looking at. Is if I'm in a better space at the front end and I'm feeling that flow and I can get in that flow state earlier, is that going to help me? Especially when you're looking at tenths of a second, if not hundredths or thousands.
And I mean, we're getting, with long distance runners, even now it's crazy. Like it will be a fraction of a second. So their 4x8 relay won state this year by 0.2 of a second. And the finishing guy, he had about a 100-meter lead with 200 meters left. And but he wasn't feeling good. Like to his credit, he wasn't feeling well at all. Like he got done, had to have IV bags, was puking. But that's how much time he lost just in that last 100 meters, right? So yes, or in the last 200 meters. So anyway, the point is like even for, it makes me wonder if would I overplus during training and then remove it during the actual.
Yes. It's just resistance training.
Right.
So like strobe glasses, overplussing, those things, that's all resistance training. So if you think about it for, I'm sure he's doing resistance training at other times.
Yep.
It's that. And he doesn't have to do it all the time.
Yeah.
So the studies show 3 times a week for 15 minutes is enough. So when he's doing warm-ups, do that.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't have to be when he's actually running a long distance. It could be warm-ups or different drills.
Yeah.
Because all we're doing is stressing the system. So that way, when he is stressed, like let's say it's really competitive, all right, game on. I've got this. I'm not gonna crumble.
Yeah.
And that's such a difficult task. And part of it's also mental.
Oh yeah.
And so if I can stress this,
it's a ton mental.
Running.
Like, I watch these guys who like they're the best, right? Like the best class B, best class A guys.
Yeah.
Both of them win the race before they run it.
Yes.
And they do it because everybody else knows on that field.
Oh yeah.
No way you're touching me.
Right.
And it's not. And when you watch them, there's guys that try to do it.
Yes.
Right. They just seem cocky.
Yeah.
And then there's guys that really do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my gosh, how do I get to that level? Everybody else is looking at them like, I'm going to run my best, but I'm not going to get that guy, right?
Yeah. Yes.
There's something about that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is. It's a mentality, but it's also mental toughness. I mean, obviously they've all put in the work physically, and that's the difference. And I think what athletes miss is that vision's a part of that difference.
Yeah.
And so that's
The
why
doctors
I say,
are missing it. Like
exactly,
right?
100%.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying everything you do is sports vision, because you're helping people with their better quality of life. You're helping them do something they like to do. And even if it's, somebody at a nursing home reading the crossword, when you give them those plus, that's sports vision.
All right. So I want last couple things.
Yes.
Where can people get more information about what you're talking about? So when I say people, I mean me.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I love about the podcast and one of the things I love about optometry is finding when there's opportunity all the time in our profession. And this is for the younger people listening. This is for the older people listening. But opportunity to find something that ignites a fire.
Yeah.
Dr. Horn, you've ignited a fire in me as far as sports vision is concerned, and I wasn't even expecting it, honestly.
Yeah.
But now I'm super excited to think about how I can help more patients in my practice, even though I may be doing sports vision, how I can do more of it and be more intentional about it. Right. So if I wanted to learn more about walking through that process with a patient, having better communication, knowing which tools I might want to implement into my practice for those assessments, how to upregulate, downregulate, like where do I go for that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll be a little self-serving.
You should be. Yeah.
So Sports Vision Pros does a great job. Now, we're really focused actually not on optometrists. Our focus is actually on coaches, trainers, parents, and athletes so they can push optometry. We want them going to the optometrist going, what do you know about this? Yeah. But we also need optometry to be aware of it too. So Sports Vision Pros, we have an academy that's on there. It needs to be updated because it's now starting to get a little outdated because there's new products that are out there. Yeah. But those are wonderful tools that are out there. ISVA, the International Sports Vision Association, they have an annual meeting. That's another one, and it's mainly optometry that's there, although there are other interprofessional groups that are there. They're wonderful. Then you've also got a book like Graham Erickson's book. So that's where if you want to look at what are the references, because there's the discussion of, well, there's no science behind it. He's listed out all the science behind it. So that way, if somebody really wants to dive deeper, that's the other way to go.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Dr. Horn, thanks so much for doing this.
My pleasure. Thank
great.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Definitely.